Welcome to Subject to Change, a sustainability podcast.
I'm Jodi Smits-Anderson, and I'm really pleased you're all joining us with Subject to Change.
I'm Lauren Stanek, and we're really excited to introduce this week's guest, Bart Trudeau.
Welcome to Bart Trudeau of Trudeau Architects.
I'm an architect. I live in Latham, New York. I have a wife, and we have 3 grown children, all married. Our 7th grandchild is on the way.
Ooh.
And so lots of exciting, but big family. I'm 2nd generation in architecture, and we have a 3rd generation who's also joined the firm a year ago.
Where we work and live.
We have kind of an interesting site here in that we're the place where my office is also the place where I was born and raised. Well, my father used to say the deeds went back 250 years, and that was almost 50 years ago. So, I mean, we're somewhere in that range for when it was known that there was a building on this property, but nobody really knows when the original structure was built. You know, we're building right now as we speak. This place has never stopped, being, you talk about subject to change. This building is the poster child for subject to change.
Responsibility.
When we first moved to the property and it became our own, we spent a couple of years just studying the property. Even though I was born and raised here, and I could say I knew it really well. There's a big difference between being there and now it's yours and it's your responsibility. So for a couple of years, we just let the property be. Jodi mentioned that we've been thinning the forest. Sometimes I feel evil for doing that, but it's actually very, very carefully thought out. I do struggle with this because I don't feel like nature needs us in order to be healthy.
Natural energy.
They also have installed renewable energy systems on a rotating sun tracking system.
Cool.
Oh, Lauren, if you could just see these things, they are
I want to.
Spectacular. They're so much fun.
Just call them sunflowers.
So I mean, to me, they're very large. I don't know, they're probably 20-foot square sunflowers, mechanical sunflowers. So there's these big square panels of solar panels, and they're on monopoles. So they rotate following the sun and tilting all day long. Every 5-10 minutes, they'll make little adjustments to get the perfect sun angle. And then at the end of the day, they go to sleep. They just flatten out horizontal, and then in the morning they rotate to the east and then tilt up. And
it's about always learning.
I have personally been learning a lot, and there's so many things I would do differently. We put in these super efficient, condensing boilers and very high efficiency systems, but I'm just kicking myself that we didn't go geothermal. I didn't know enough at the time that I had to make that decision, and I was discouraged from doing it, and I really should not have been. I mean, if I was to make the decision today, you couldn't possibly discourage me from doing it.
Well, that's the thing, though. I mean, you make the decisions in the moment with the best information at hand, and
yeah, exactly.
try and ask the right questions. But I think one of the things that I've learned over the years is if you spend the time regretting decisions you made in the past, you'll actually trip yourself up regarding things that you're doing right now. There are some people who never do anything because they think that next week there'll be something better that comes along. And I'm not just talking
right.
relationships or renewable energy.
Yeah.
It's about the phenomenal team.
I also am fascinated by your business, the art and science of facilities.
Yeah,
I love
we
that combination.
we and that says a lot about us. I I tell you, I really feel incredibly blessed by all of this. I mean, it's not just the land, the property, opportunity to do all these things, but the business itself, it's to me is so exciting. Um, you know, the group of people that we have working here
Oh
are
yeah.
just phenomenal.
The art and science of facilities.
So we have three areas of focus, and we're definitely a peculiar architecture practice. Um, we don't fit a lot of the traditional, you know, models there. Our areas of focus um, are in building enclosures. So we do a lot of roofing and building envelope work. And we're doing some really interesting things there with 3D modeling and energy use. But the other thing is, you know, we've been Jodi, I think you know we've been engaged in institutional planning
Yeah.
for a
Exciting.
long time, and we have tremendous depth there. An outgrowth of those activities in just managing large amounts of data and having a tremendous interest in data analysis and in institutional systems and practices and how to improve processes that are involved in institutional decision making. We developed an information technology company. So fully half of our staff right now are actually computer science. No offense to people who write software, but it's a real understatement of what they do, because
Right.
so much of what they do is really looking at what a client is doing, how they're making their decisions, and how they're going about doing their work.
Can you give me an example of how the information technology gets specifically utilized so that maybe we can understand a little bit better?
We're collecting information about buildings, how they're used, the conditions that they're in, um, what they have to offer, um, and then putting that information into a presentation that allows large groups of people to work through their decision-making process in order to properly allocate capital. You know, as Jodi will testify, there's never enough capital available to do all the work that's needed in, you know, in institutional settings.
Space, use, timing, and value.
Of looking at spaces, looking at people, looking at usage percentages, and then making
Yeah,
decisions with that. And that's information beyond what most people even have at their disposal when they're talking about renovations, whether it be corporate or residential. I mean, how many, let's see, one of the first things I read in the Not So Big House, that the smartest architect will first help a homeowner decide if they really need the space. Have you cleaned out your closets?
yeah.
Are you using your bedroom or your dining room all the time? Like, what spaces are you using well and what spaces aren't you using well? And we never go through that thought process. It's, oh, more space must be better.
That's a wonderful analogy, and it's perfectly fitting.
Getting to a collective mind.
When that same information is spread across hundreds of
Oh,
individuals
yeah.
that all need to work together and have a collective mind
Mhm.
to figure out all of that. That's where information systems can be of a huge benefit.
Planning.
But we have a particular focus in student housing planning, and we go very deep there. I just love it. It's very meaningful to me to be involved with people, you know, at that point in their personal development.
Care and attention.
How do you go about infusing your passion into those types of spaces? What are some of the things that maybe you think about that maybe I'm going to generalize and say maybe most architects and designers aren't thinking about? What's that care and attention to detail for you?
A time of transition.
Helping young people to go from that transition of being within a small community that might be their family, their neighborhood, their high school, and building them up into a much broader and more diverse human experience, and fostering that in space. How are you bringing these students together so that they can form new relationships? That whole sequence of experiences that a student goes through
Foster citizens.
to foster citizens, people that are that just have a full experience in what it means to be on planet Earth.
What an important cause, especially in light of recent events here, right? I mean, there's probably no more important task than creating citizens, right?
I think it's huge.
More precise than reality.
We've really been on sabbatical. A desperately needed sabbatical, I might add, that's been very, very fruitful. I wouldn't want to financially go another year, but we could easily spend another year just developing the data that we have in student housing.
Is there any other project that you've tackled in this unexpected slow time that you're particularly pleased with?
Yeah, in our building envelope work, we kind of a geeky firm. So when new technologies and software comes out, we're always like trying things and exploring with stuff. So now we're 3D modeling all of the tapered insulation.
That's
so that
awesome.
we can get a perfectly true model of the U value of the roof. It's precise, probably more precise than reality, but well, right, you know how that works.
Yeah. Because then you install it.
Yeah.
But why model?
When you're modeling this, what specifically is being studied and why is it so important that a model actually be utilized versus just lines on paper?
Well, essentially because what we had historically done is the building codes are prescribing an R value. That's a minimum R value that's required. That's your thermal resistance. How do you make wise energy decisions when you're just simply saying that it needs to meet a simple R value? It's not terribly effective. When you 3D model something, now you're looking at the true heat resistance of the entire roof as a system, taking into consideration every penetration, all the varied thicknesses of insulation, every component of the roof is factored in. Now, with that information, you can now start to look at a better analysis of the impacts of raising that insulation. What's that going to result in more accurately in energy savings, as well as seeing what's going to be the impact to the rest of the detailing of the roof. It gives you much better information for making cost benefit type decisions.
Innovation in public work.
You know me, and you know that I'm always wishing that there'd be more innovation in public work. Just out of curiosity, what was that?
I think there's tremendous innovation in public work.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. I do. I really do. I see it. I don't know. I think because most of our work is in the public sector, and I think we do a ton of innovative stuff.
That's great. What I was going to ask is just in reflection, is there something that, especially in light of having 3 manufacturers that are equivalent out there, et cetera, what is there some tech or some approach that you wish could be adopted more quickly than you foresee it being adopted?
That was sort of my question. I'm glad you asked that, Jodi.
That's a good one. We're doing some roofs over some walkways that the construction was such that we didn't have the depth to do it.
Mhm.
So the roof is being done with vacuum insulated panels, which is a very new technology. It's still pretty expensive, but in that particular instance, the case was justified. Really expensive roof. Wow. Your construction site is suspended over the Riverside Drive in Manhattan. Yeah. So
it's already an expensive concept before you even start to design it.
VIP, vacuum insulated panels.
So vacuum insulated panels are insulation panels that all of the air has been removed. So it actually creates a no air movement and no transfer of heat, because there's no air to transfer. There's no material in there, in essence, to transfer the heat. So it's it's incredible. Yeah. And I think it was featured in environmental Building Green in their top 10 products last year or the year before.
Building Green, an excellent resource.
Building Green every year does touch on the top 10 products that they'd recommend, and they have proven out really well over the last decade that they've been doing it, more than a decade, 20 years. And they provide excellent resources and information.
An 1830s residential renovation.
I did not realize, I don't know why I didn't realize this, but you did the renovation work for the Coon's house.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that. This is an 1830s farmhouse that was renovated to zero net energy performing.
It was LEED platinum very early on. It's net zero, and it did everything, well ahead of its time.
Yeah, well ahead of its time. There you go, 150 to 180-year-old building home. That's pretty impressive stuff.
It's 100% electrified.
It's great.
It won several awards, and I know we have we did some posters for it that has some summary information.
For a tour in the future.
Let's have COVID and let's do a tour.
Yeah.
As a podcast.
We could do a virtual tour anyway.
I mean, I wanted to see it in person, but okay.
Jodi, you're not getting it.
You know what? I'm always trying to make lemonade out of those lemons.
We're booked through like June, right? We might all be immunized by then. I don't know.
Sure.
You don't want to do that.
When he asked me to do his house, I tried as best as I could to talk him out of it. I really did, and I did the project because I love Paul. I think the world of him. He's a really great guy, but we don't do residential work. I mean, it's just really not our thing. We're not efficient at it.
Well, they're very hands-on, knowledgeable people. They probably worked with you on a lot of the decisions and brought a lot of decisions to the table that couldn't be discussed.
And I don't want to be very clear, as far as all of the innovations that went into that house, that was their brainchild.
So let's hear more about the home and garden.
So my next question, so it sounds like this yard in and of itself is really, I mean, Jodi has described it as a garden. I think is how you said it before.
Thank you.
You have like what's the approach? Are you doing like are you doing food forests? Are you doing wildlife habitat? Are you doing all? I mean, I guess they're both.
Yeah.
But like what is it that you're doing? Because Jodi knows that I'm very passionate about this.
Oh, that's so exciting. My eldest brother's, he can just walk outside and eat.
Oh.
So Lauren wants to crawl into the computer right now. And
I want to crawl into your brother's head in Hawaii because
Yes.
all
Oh,
of this
me
sounds like
too.
paradise. But
Me too. I try to absorb as much knowledge from him as I can, and he teaches me a lot.
Rose hips?
I never knew what a rose hip was. I mean, I've heard of a rose hip. I've had rose hips and supplements and stuff like that. No, we walk out in the front yard and we're eating rose hips off the bush, you know.
That's cool.
And
I started planting rose hips on my old property because
they're amazing.
yes, and I didn't get to enjoy any, but that's okay.
My big achievement is finding spearmint that, continues to grow and making a mojito.
Yeah.
Check out the book 1491.
You mentioned that you feel odd about, cutting back and cultivating because, should you interact with nature in that way and control it? But we're nature, and
yeah,
we're one of the systems. And also, I don't know, that book 1491.
Oh, great book.
Great book, which is about what this continent really looked like before Columbus discovered it, when there was already a vital and very populous residency here, and the cultivation of the forests by the indigenous people, which really led to the forest being much healthier. If you just leave nature alone and fence it off and say, let's protect that over there, it really doesn't do much to create sustainable outcomes.
This is one of the things I love you for, Jodi, is you can help to ease a conscience that struggles with these concerns, because I really do struggle with it. I it's difficult. We have this beautiful land, and we're plowing through it with 75 horsepower diesel engines.
Well, that we can talk about.
It's not necessary.
When I was a kid.
Well, Lauren, you had asked me earlier what's driving this, and is habitat part of it? And habitat is a huge part of it. Mm-hmm. So it's been fascinating. One of the things that we've done is I've dug 5 ponds that all kind of terrace one into the next, and I think they're beautiful. But it's incredible. Now, when I was a kid, we raised ducks here, and that was my thing. We raised rabbits and ducks, and I raised the ducks. So we had a duck pond, and there was I always remember this place being full of frogs and turtles and things like that, and they weren't around anymore. So I thought, nasty environment, it's killing all the amphibians. No, it's not. There's lots of frogs. Oh my God.
They just wanted
they just needed a place. It's like I literally could not finish digging the ponds before the frogs started invading and the turtles moving in.
Wow.
And I'm like, guys, let me finish. I only need a few more weeks. All right. I don't want to crush somebody.
Bart's hero.
Every week we ask our guests the same questions, 2 of the same questions. So Bart, who's your hero right now? Who should we know about?
Jodi mentioned that would be asked, and I'll confess that was a struggle to come up with. I'm not really a big hero person per se, so my first thought is, gosh, do I even have any heroes? And so I appreciate having a little bit of time to think about it. I think the person that I would lift up as kind of a hero in my mind, and frankly, it would take a while to explain why, but it would be the person who I voted for president this year. and that's Pope Francis.
Yeah, that was not who I expected.
I'm Catholic, so the Pope is obviously a meaningful individual to me. Pope Francis has been a lot more challenging. He's not a traditional Pope character, and he's really been growing on me over time. I absolutely love his concepts of human fraternity, and Jodi. Well, both of you, if you have not read, there's an encyclical. Have you ever heard of the encyclical called Laudato Si?
No.
Okay. So as people with a concern for the environment, this is a critical read for you. It's a paper written by the Pope about the environment and about the importance of the environment to human development and human civilization.
Well, I
really
appreciate
enjoy
that. I
reading it.
appreciate you sharing that with us too. That's really, it's powerful.
Politics and religion.
So what's the biggest initiative we should all be knowledgeable about now?
We have to get beyond the notion that we can't talk about politics and religion.
Oh, yes. I agree.
I don't know, to me that's like huge.
Mm-hmm.
And just not get offended. I mean, people are going to have different perspectives. They're going to have different points of view.
Yeah.
It's not a personal judgment, but it would be so much better if we could actually talk to each other and share our thoughts without offending. We need to figure that out. And I honestly don't know how to do it. We can't even do it in our own family.
Right.
But I just think that that would be enormous.
The ironic part of all of this is that I think that people really want to be heard. And of course, people want things to go their way. But mostly at this point, people want to hear heard and valued as citizens of the country.
Right.
And it seems as though, especially you'd think that in a 24-hour news cycle that we have going on now, it seems to me that there should be more than enough time to cover the entire gamut of needs and social issues that are out there that people want heard. And unfortunately, they seem to focus on very small sections of things. And so, when we have people in this country that are hurting for a number of reasons, they want to be heard and valued. And we're saying, we want to have this conversation, right? Because I want to have the conversation. I want to know, I want to understand, I want to be compassionate.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to me that it seems like there's some sort of an impasse that occurs where people that I want to talk to so that I can understand don't want to talk to me about it, even though I want to listen. I want to understand.
So
Lauren, if we could just figure that out, that would be a real step forward.
Humankind, a hopeful history.
How we've created a society that feeds on the headline news, the snippet news, the bad news. And so we're reinforcing our own negative stereotypes of every single person around us, no matter what. And that's actually undermining that communication, because we have in our minds what those people are going to act like from those news cycles.
Right.
This has been subject to change, trying to make those connections.
Thank you so much for inviting me to do this. This was just a blast.
Thank you to our interviewee, Bart Trudeau. We're glad to learn about True Arcs and other initiatives. Check out the notes for links.
We're incredibly pleased that you joined us for another video. And just a reminder, if you're on our YouTube channel, please subscribe, because then you'll get the videos as soon as they're posted. If you don't subscribe, you'll have to wait till I push them out on Twitter and stuff. So you get the better, quicker, more timely news if you subscribe. And we're awesome, so you don't want to miss an episode. Absolutely. And our guests are amazing. So click on that little button and subscribe. And thank you again for spending some time with us.
Thanks so much. We'll see you all next week.
And thanks, Bart.
Bye.
Thank you, Mark.